I don't know. I don't know what we just watched here.
Motorpsycho Maniacs?
So this is welcome to Bad Movies and Beer. I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And this is a bonus episode that we are making during our hiatus here. We have a mid-season break, and we thought, 9 weeks is probably too long to wait to put out any kind of content. So we decided to record a bonus episode with a movie that one of our Instagram followers is the director, producer, writer of this movie, and was like, hey, we think you guys would like this. Will you take a look at it? And yes, the name of it is Motorpsycho Maniacs. But when he contacted us on Instagram, he said the original title of this movie was Sex Terrorists on Wheels. And that's the point where I was like, yeah, I'll take a look at that.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is definitely a bonus episode. It's a little bit different from all the other movies we've watched so far because it is a smaller production, right? Like this,
definitely.
We can tell this isn't a Hollywood production film.
But you know what? We love our fans and we love our followers on Instagram and Twitter. And when this guy hit us up, we were like, you know what? What a great excuse to just kind of make an episode just for fun. We'll watch this movie and we'll see what's up. And
here we are.
That's what we did. Yeah.
And we do want to thank our listener for sort of sending
Stefan.
Yeah, Stefan. Thank you, Stefan.
At Motorpsycho Maniacs, which is, of course, the name of the movie. And this is... okay, let's start with this. They're not making this thing to be serious. They're clearly leaning into the 70s era B movie. My God, just Sex Terrorists on Wheels. That sounds like the title of a movie that you would have gone to see at some bullshit movie theater at midnight. It's not. They're not trying to make this a serious movie.
No, and it's clearly kind of set in the past a little bit, right? It's not fully in the past. It was probably supposed to be 70s, 80s, 90s era, I guess.
I don't know. It was baffling to me.
It's a little bit hard to tell
the time was
sort of the
timeline,
but I think we had to take a little bit of a grain of salt when we watched this because if we judged it against other movies we've watched in the podcast, it's not really fair.
No, this is not a major Hollywood production. These guys are clearly doing this independently outside of the studio system, which actually lines it up nicely with the beer that we are drinking for this episode. The beer we are drinking today is called Yuzu, and it is by the Radical Road Brewing Company, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Have you heard of these guys before, Nolan?
Radical Road I've definitely heard of before. I don't think I've tried this Yuzu Pale Ale. I'm excited because I do love pale ales. So
I know you do.
Japanese Yuzu fruit is put into this pale ale. Yeah, this is sort of something I'm getting on the side of this. So it's Pacific Northwest hops, and it creates a blend of citrus flavors. So I'm excited for that. So some of my favorite beers are citrusy pale ales.
Let's crack it open and get into it.
Yeah, I like it. I would say this movie would be small batch movie making, I guess, if we were going to compare it.
Oh, man, that's a great way of saying that. I like that.
So we got that. So we're kind of bringing the spirit of our craft brewing with spirit of independent movie making here together as we watch sort of an undescribable movie. An indescribable movie, I would say.
So we open on a bridge. You were very excited about this bridge.
Wonderful dress bridge.
I love bridges. Excited. You know so much about bridges. It's such a weird thing.
I threw down a straight +1 for bridge start, and I don't want to give any spoilers away, but I was super happy about how this movie ended. For sure.
Yeah, man. So we've got this bridge. There's an old man walking with his much younger wife, girlfriend, whatever. We find out that she's carrying his child. We were very confused about what this relationship was.
Yeah, it was strange. He had this sort of long white beard, and he was bald, and she was a lot younger, and they were talking about how this was going to be their last time.
The last time. And my first thought was they're bank robbers or something. No, it turns out this is a drug deal. This is, as they're walking along, we get the first of many just aggressive zooms. It's a zoom in on a coyote. At least I believe it's supposed to be a coyote.
It's a dog. I mean, even in the credits, it says Max the dog as Max the coyote.
Well, there you go. So it's a dog playing a coyote. This is, I don't know how expensive it is to rent a fucking coyote. It's probably expensive.
Yeah. If you want to train coyote, I bet that costs a lot of coin.
For sure it does. We've also got some pretty strong Western vibes at this point.
Yeah, the music sort of chimes in right here, and we're getting some very, rockabilly Western kind of sounds. We definitely know that it's supposed to have those kind of tones. We're thinking Wild West, things are out of control, and maybe there's a little bit of law that's trying to hold this together.
Lots of twangs, but we find out that they're in Texas. That's what we learn. while these two are walking along, all of a sudden somebody in leather hot pants shows up and is just like,
Hey, Tim.
I guess the dude's name is Tim.
Yeah, we get this straight zoom on these leather chapped like ass right away, right?
Yep.
And then we hear from this person, "Hey Tim."
Jezebel is her name,
Yep.
and she basically she's dressed like a witch, like a Halloween costume of a witch. And like I wrote down Hillary Duff witch because she kind of little Hillary Duff.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It was definitely like an extremely exotic. Well, I don't know if exotic's the right word. It was like.
No, it's a blonde white lady. She's not exotic at all.
No. I'm just trying to say a polite way to say like skanky or slutty.
Oh, hey now.
Yeah.
All right. But I mean, you're not wrong either. That's kind of the appearance we're led to believe here. Some kind of like BDSM themed something.
Yeah, definitely.
This is not who they were expecting. Turns out that she's not there to buy their drugs. She's there to take. And as soon as she says that, Tim just eats an arrow in the leg, and then someone else throws a noose around his like wife girlfriend.
Well, hold on.
We're just off to the races here.
Tim gets upset. He's like, "What do you mean?" And he pulls a gun. And after he pulls that gun on them, he takes a bow and arrow right through the leg. Like this has to hit one of his arteries. Like this guy's bleeding out already, and his pregnant bride or whatever she is gets noosed.
Oh yeah, and this is the first of several hangings in this movie. This is the gang. These are the Motorpsycho Maniacs, the sex terrorists for which this film was previously titled. We meet the leader immediately. His name is Lobo the Wolf, which Lobo is literally just the Spanish word for wolf.
It's Wolf the
Wolf the Wolf. He's the Duran Duran of biker gang leaders.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Lobo is a character in this movie that pops up a lot and has way too many lines for his acting caliber.
You were pretty down on Lobo.
Lobo was my least favorite character in this entire movie.
He's important. He drives the plot along.
You need Lobo for sure, but he was just so deliberate in everything he said that it felt like beating me over the head bad.
Here's what confuses me, because I mean, you're not wrong about Lobo, but it sort of seems like the wife girlfriend is kind of in on this. Like she talks to the gang like she knows them. She says you weren't supposed to kill him, you're only supposed to scare him. And I'm like, what is she? Did she like cross? She crossed him on this deal. She's carrying his child.
My interpretation was she was trying to get him out of the drug game.
Oh, okay.
So she had made a deal with these fucking sex terrorists to get her husband, old man Tim, out of the drug game.
Like a scared straight scenario.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, they fucking shoot him through the femoral artery with an arrow.
Go figure that trusting group of people called these sex terrorists did not pay off.
And what else happened to them after they fucking...
Well, so... First of all, we see boobs like less than a minute into this movie, which is...
Jezebel takes her top off.
Pops it right away.
Why?
It's a power move, I think. I think she's just...
Well, and then she runs a straight blade over her breasts as she's trying to intimidate them.
It intimidated me. I was very intimidated.
Fair.
And a little aroused.
That's a nice addition.
So the gang they're bad people. We find this out because they basically... There's no easy way to say this. They rape his wife/girlfriend.
Yeah, a very bloody and weird dude with a like raccoon skin hat, like a Davy Crockett hat.
Yeah.
Clearly rapes the pregnant woman.
And we find out later on, this is not the last raping in this movie. This movie is a little rape heavy for my taste.
A lot rape heavy for everyone's taste, I think.
This guy later on is encouraged to participate in more of these unwanted sexual escapades. I don't know if we ever actually learn his name, but he is obsessed with livers. And I just referred to him as the Liver King throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, I think we don't actually find out his name till the end credits, and I just didn't have the energy to write it down after watching this
It's like
film.
Larry the Liver Eater or Lenny the Liver, whatever.
Lenny the Liver
but
man.
he's having his way with the dude's wife. Meanwhile, they scalp Tim, which is, I mean, we've got some. They're operating on a budget here, clearly, but this skin effect is not great.
So you can't see it, but I'm very heavily rolling my eyes at Cooper as we podcast here because, of course, the person who scalps him is a white woman with some black paint on her face who...
Well, now, hey, hold the phone. You love doing this. You've done this so much in our first season.
Yeah, it makes me so uncomfortable every time we run into this
They
shit.
address this. They say that she is
164th
164th
Kamikaze.
Kamikaze?
Yeah,
She's a Japanese fighter pilot? Good Lord.
It is really, really rough. So
But they joke about it. They mention it. It's not they try to stick a white woman in there and just ignore it.
And no, I am glad they sort of mentioned that. They know that what they're doing is cultural appropriation, and that's sort of why they sort of share or poke fun at those ideas. And I think we have to take this movie with that sort of understanding.
Well, that's what we were already saying.
If we took this movie seriously, we would have shut it off like 7
Oh, come on now. Don't be mean.
No. I'm not saying that like it wasn't worth watching. I'm saying that if you weren't able to interpret it in that way, it would be offensive to many people.
If you went to a Blockbuster video in the 90s and tried to rent this thinking you were taking home like Kramer versus Kramer, yeah, you're going to be upset and you're going to fucking return it. But come on, this is not what we knew we were getting into.
No, we did. And I'm not upset that I watched it, but I'm just saying like
high praise.
this could be offensive to many.
Sure. So speaking of things that are a little extreme,
are we getting to Tim's fate now?
Well, that's what it is. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So the liver fan ends up cutting out the pregnant woman's liver and like eating it because he's a cannibal who enjoys the taste of human liver. While that's happening, they appear to cut off Tim's balls and feed it to him in his mouth. But like, this does not look like. Why was the penis was like so solid and there's no way.
Yeah, so it was funny because I felt like the testicle effect was actually fairly good.
Oh, there you go.
Like they looked like hanging balls, but when they had the penis in there, it looked like a sort of like toilet paper tube kind of covered in skin-colored paper mache.
Plus one for the ball effect, but minus one for the dog effect.
So we're going out even on this one. Yeah, I agree. So, and then the blood looked like it was fucking Hershey's chocolate liquid sauce. Like,
oh my god! Oh, there's a few times in this movie where the blood is just jet black.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Now, one of the I think it was Lobo says,
"It's a long way to Esperanza."
And we get a montage of them kind of, packing up, traveling, and we get the credits. And sure enough, the credits say the old title, Sex Terrorists on Wheels. We then immediately cut to like a grizzled old prospector, or is he a furrier? He's got a lot of animal pelts on him.
Yeah, he can sort of speak to animals, and he has the ability to sort of sense them.
He's talking to a chinchilla when we meet him.
Yeah, which is amazing. I love that you called him old prospector. He sort of pulled me back to a lot of the other horror movies we've watched, where we've had sort of this prophetic old man.
Well, right away you were like, he's prophetic. He predicted something.
He was starting to predict what was happening. Yeah. He started to say this, and I was like, I see why he's in this movie, right? Like, this makes sense. We need this guy to help push along the plot, and also to balance out, like, through nature, the evil of the sex terrorist.
Well, and he's talking to a chinchilla. He talks to a turtle, and the coyote we saw earlier returns to, like, he clearly belongs to him.
Him and Max are pretty close. We figured out. And you start to figure out pretty quick that maybe this movie is just sort of like kind of an indictment on human nature. Like we've got sort of that's what it started to feel to me, right? I started to feel like that's what they were trying to get at in their stories. They were trying to be like, look at this is how people are living currently. This is the problem of our modern scenario, and then sort of that grizzled old man was the how we should go back to living.
I mean, you definitely see the worst of human nature, and I agree. His simple, idyllic lifestyle is certainly... I mean, he's the only character in this movie who is kind of above reproach because everyone else just does horrible, horrible things.
Yeah, it's true. It's weird. We learn later that his name is Enzo.
No, Ezra.
Ezra, that's right. Sorry. Oh, and
Ennio's Italian.
Yeah, he's an Italian baker.
Yeah, we've got a Japanese kamikaze Native American and an Italian baker, old prospector.
Am I blaming the Yuzu beer here from Ramblin' Road, or am I blaming this movie?
From Radical Road? Come on, man. God damn it! I'm flashing back to Predator 2 right now. So happening. We also, speaking of other characters, we meet a white lady who is wearing a poncho and a sombrero. And
I drop another eyebrow on this one. Cultural appropriation 2.0.
But she never claims to be like Latino. She's just walking down the road. She's wearing this poncho.
Her sombrero says Mexico on it.
So she's been to Mexico. You ever bought a souvenir anywhere you travel?
That is exactly what we find out, actually. So I was happy about that.
Then from there, we jump to the gang, the sex terrorists on wheels. They're around a campfire. And this is where they kind of point out that the girl doesn't look like Native American. She doesn't look like she's from First Nations community. She looks white, but she clarifies for all of us, especially you, Noel, that she is 164th Comanche. Then we cut
We also find out in that very moment that the only one she will is the leader of the gang because he's the only one who can tame her like Indian wildness.
This is kind of a recurring theme also. For some reason, the ladies love Lobo, or like within his gang at least, there's competition for who gets to bed the wolf, as it were.
Which is shocking because Lobo brings nothing to the table for me.
He's the leader. He's the president of this chapter, which he repeats over and over again. So
it's
the power.
He keeps telling.
Go for the power. Yeah. We then meet two police officers. They're Texas Rangers. Yeah. I had to pause for a second because with one of them, I was like, "Is that Lou Diamond Phillips?" This is I thought for a split second it was him. It is not. But these are two Texas Rangers. For some reason, they do not have their horses.
They're hiking through Texas.
They are, and they ask for directions.
They meet Ezra, our prophetic old man, and they ask him for some directions because they're looking for the devil?
The she-devil of the
whatever mountains.
Snake Mountains.
Snake Mountains.
She-devil of Snake Mountains.
She-devil of Snake Mountains. Yes.
I don't know. We cut back to that same white girl in the poncho, and she is not wearing the poncho right now. She is actually skinny dipping. When all of a sudden, one of the Texas Rangers shows up and finds her. His name is Sticky Joe. And goddamn, he is a disgusting human being.
So this is like this overweight Texas Ranger with a horrible beard who just wants to get his dick wet.
Yeah, that's all he does. And he tries to hook up with her. Luckily, his partner steps up.
So he pretends to take down his zipper, but he doesn't actually do it.
You know what's funny about that is there are so many times in this movie where male characters allegedly have their pants down or they're allegedly have their dick out, and they never do. It's just like, and for the record, I'm not saying I wish that was the thing and we would get to see that. But like they
could have made it more believable. So one of the biggest faults of this movie for you is that the dick outs were not believable enough. And I think that's fair. I mean, I think there should have been many more plausible dick outs.
Here's the thing. I support female empowerment. And so I'm like, they have no trouble showing a bunch of boobs. Why not throw a hot cock out there for everyone? What if there's some...
It's a large assumption that all women want to see a hot cock.
Well, listen, I'm not all of them. Certainly not all of them, but maybe some do. Do all men want to see the various boobs?
So we get there, and I don't understand why his name is Sticky Joe, but Sticky Joe, the Texas Marshal, tries to throw down some very rapey vibes at the she-devil of Snake Mountain.
But his partner stops him. Thank goodness for Lou Diamond Phillips, his lookalike, who stops him. And they have been kind of tracking this lady. He calls her the she-devil. They've been looking for her. And she says she isn't who they think she is. So we're starting to find out this is a very mysterious character. Maybe some more backstory there.
I mean, you might have got a little bit funky music there to sort of support it.
God, the music cues in this are surprisingly good.
Really good.
They're really good.
I'm going to give a lot of credit to the musical background and even the sound effects. They're on the nose, but they're well done for the movie that we have. There's a lot of whip and revving motorcycle sounds in this bad boy.
This will come up again when we go to rate this, but clearly a lot of effort went into this. This is not, it's a low budget production, independent production, but they're not half-assing this. They're putting effort in. The sound cues, the editing. I was a little impressed with some of it.
Oh, definitely. I thought that the music played well for the tone of the movie, for sure.
There you go. So we see the gang again, and they are...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is where they meet Ezra. They meet Ezra, the old man in the woods, and they kind of question who he is, and he says that he's sort of from this area. And they ask him some questions, and he tells them that they're upon the eve of destruction.
Well, and he's very unimpressed that Lobo is calling himself the wolf.
I'm Lobo the wolf. You're not a wolf, you're a human being.
Which is amazing, right? I love this.
Absolutely.
This is where I was really questioning Lobo's acting. This is where I was like, he's just incredibly deliberate, and I don't believe it in any way.
When Ezra tells him that he's headed for the eve of destruction, Lobo pulls a gun on him, but when the camera cuts back, the old man is just gone.
Yes, our prophetic old man who lives alone in the woods.
He's at one with nature.
But this is where I take sort of my lesson from the movie. Right?
Yeah.
This is where I'm sort of figuring that the message of the movie must be...
You're thinking about moving into the woods? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we should all go move to the woods and stop...
Say goodbye to your wife and children and just
they
move
can
out
come.
there. And, lucky them. They can come. Guess what? We're moving to the woods. We go from there to a bar, which is in some kind of barn, which I know you had a lot of...
this is a challenging setting for me. Both this and the hideout for our villains were... quickly.
This is the hideout, isn't it?
No. The barn's not the hideout. The hideout is some sketchy.
A different barn?
Garage. Yeah, but.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. I apologize. You're right. This is the barn that is clearly a barn. The next one is the problem.
Yeah, and so they're at this bar, which is taking place in a barn, and we find this sort of like very old man.
It's a grandfather and his granddaughter.
With a woman whose granddaughter, they keep calling her granddaughter, but she looks like she's about 35.
Listen, he's old as fuck, so she could definitely be his granddaughter.
No, you're right. That's true. Like, but they also like very much. She's in like a very white dress and keep referring to her like innocence and virginity.
She's meant to seem very virginal, I feel. And there's another guy there as well. It turns out his mother just died, and they're talking about this briefly.
I've called him the well-dressed man.
Fair enough. He is wearing a nice suit. The sex terrorists arrive, and there's bad times coming, clearly. The old man tells them there's no smoking. They just laugh. And then they're a little bit taken with the bartender's granddaughter. Emily is her name. Grandpa doesn't like the attention that she gets, so she pulls a gun on them. But Jezebel, in one of her many successful bullwhippings in this movie, just whips it right out of his hands.
She bullwhips at least a dozen guns out of people's hands in this movie, and it is pretty incredible. Like, someone that skilled with a bullwhip should not be a part of a sex terrorist gang, I feel. Like,
she's like a lady Indiana Jones.
She should, have other great career aspirations, I feel.
Speaking of incredible, the well-dressed man, as you put him, pulls a gun on them and tells them to knock it off. And his name, we learn.
I love this part of the movie.
His name is Richard Cox.
He's fucking Dick Cox, which is so good. And I hard shit on Cooper after this because we have sort of thrown some shout-outs to our D&D friends.
Stop it.
Yeah. Cooper and I have played some Dungeons and Dragons together in the past, and one of Cooper's character's name is Dixon Cox. So this is just so funny.
I can't. I'm not into the whole like the sword and sorcery D&D part. For me, it's an excuse to get there with their friends. So I have a little fun with it, and I know that it might have upset you especially because you're fucking like super into it. Which whatever.
I was not upset by your Dixon Cox name, but I just love that you and Stefan are on the same page. I feel like maybe you could have been a co-producer of this movie.
So Dick Cox pulls the gun on these people, but sure enough, Jezebel whips it out of his hands
Again?
also.
What the fuck? Her bullwhip is on point.
She is, man. I agree. The gang's going to have their way with the granddaughter. And
this is where I was kind of like, and I don't know why this came out at me, but I was like, this writing is actually kind of clever. I did some laughing at the things that were happening here and the lines that we're saying. So I want to give some credit to sort of the humor that they built in here.
Yeah, the grandfather tries to stop them from taking advantage of their of his granddaughter, but they just kill him.
Yeah, they force Emily to stab him, which is really fucked up.
Yeah, and his blood is jet black. The blood effects in this are not strong.
Yeah, it felt like chocolate sauce to me again. Like it felt like chocolate sauce again. I don't love that. Maybe it's more accurate than many of the movies we've watched. I'm not really sure. I don't know a lot about that.
I think even the darkest blood is still got a reddish hue. This is like dark. I to me it was like jet black, but you said it was kind of more brown.
Then we get Lobo throwing down another rape, and I'm not. Yeah. And this is where he throws down a MacGruber one pump. He's sort of going from behind. But after
he's making the MacGruber sounds.
Yeah, he's making the sounds and the face. Like the face when, I don't know if you have seen MacGruber or not. I know you have seen MacGruber.
Oh, you know I've seen
I
MacGruber.
know. We've seen this together. Where he's in the cemetery making love to his dead wife. This is sort of the face that I see on Lobo the Wolf. But when he pulls away from the like backside of the person he is supposedly raped, his pants are on and his zipper is up.
There's not.
So this is another moment where you would have liked to have seen cock, and it didn't happen.
Maybe he just dry humped her to completion.
I would be happier with this because then she'd still be a virgin. But then we get our friend Liver.
Well, hang on. They kill her. They kill her next. Yeah. The Liver King kills her, and sure enough, he eats her liver. Guy loves eating livers. Dick Cox, understandably, is like, I can't even say his name without laughing. Dick Cox is like, what the fuck? And somehow, I don't know how this happens. Lobo ends up, like, they've got a gun to each other or something, and Lobo ends up telling him,
I am a rotten bastard, but I have friends who aren't, and you cops pound on them just the same. Their only crime is the color of their skin. Black Lives Matter, bitch.
And Dick Cox is like, you're not black, because Lobo is definitely not black. Then Lobo calls him racist and shoots him, and that's the end of Dick Cox. And like, rest in peace, Dick Cox. What was this?
This was a weird moment, and I don't really know what they were trying to say. Like, I don't know if this was a political statement or not.
I mean, Black lives do matter, clearly.
I agree. Definitely. But he several times in the movie worked in the line, "What, are you racist?" Like he said that to several characters. This like Lobo said that to others,
Right.
In many times where he was doing questionable or racist things. So like clearly the writers are trying to poke fun at something or to bring something to light.
So we go back to the she-devil.
Okay, before you go back to the she-devil.
No, not yet. Okay.
Yeah, we have another fucking bird zoom.
Oh, the eagle.
Yes,
The soaring eagle.
several times in this movie, and I wrote it down in this instance. We have these sort of stock cuts of soaring eagles in the sky, and a lot of times they'll transition through those soaring eagles. And I'm trying to piece some meaning to that, and it must sort of go back to that message of like back to nature.
It's a majestic bird. I assumed it was like, because again, Ezra sees through the animals. I'm like, is this like
this
an
is a
eagle
story
scout?
of Ezra seeing what's happening.
Ezra needs to keep up on the plot of this movie.
That's fair. That could happen.
We go from there to the she-devil, and for some reason, she has her poncho on now and her sombrero, but her ass is just hanging out of this poncho.
So
the poncho does not cover her full. I swear it was earlier.
well, also when she goes to get dressed in her poncho, what does she do first?
I didn't see it. What
She
happened?
puts a sombrero on before attempting to put the poncho on.
You're never going to fit the poncho over that sombrero.
Yeah, how are you getting the poncho over your sombrero? But we're here. She has her sombrero on. She has her poncho on.
Which is currently in the back of my car.
It is actually it is the
Looks
poncho
exactly like
or
that.
so it is the poncho out of Cooper's car. There's still some ass marks on it from this movie, but that's okay.
What? Stop it.
So you can see her ass because they don't extend it past that. Like they just clearly are doing gratuitous.
She's hanging
ass
ass the whole time.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they're trying to build some. I don't know who is the target audience for this movie.
People who have podcasts like ours. I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay, so I was just trying to figure out why they did it, but it was interesting.
It was. She's there with the two Texas Rangers. They are eating and drinking. She wants some food or some drink, but Sticky Joe is like, none for you. And the partner says that she's their prisoner and it's up to them to take care of her. And Sticky Joe is like, oh, I'll take care of her, which is so fucking
He
gross.
tries to pull his dick out again.
He does. He's doing that all the time.
Why is he called Sticky Joe? Because his fingers are covered in cum all the time.
Oh,
like, is
Jesus.
Well, why is it
that
like?
part?
Well, why is he called Sticky Joe? He's
That's probably why. Yeah.
Texas Ranger who keeps trying to rape the person in his custody.
Yeah, it's not a good look for the Texas Rangers.
Wow.
Suddenly the bikers arrive, and I love this line.
I hope it's not those sex terrorists we keep hearing about in the media.
So first of all, I have a lot of problems with this scene. One, they've taken the she-devil and found some weird garage to sleep in. This is where they've decided to hunker
this is
down.
the hideout where you
This
were.
is
yeah.
It's fucking Trevor's garage. They're in Trevor's garage.
we get that almost. Who's Trevor?
Just
Your next door
anyone. It
neighbor.
could be anyone's house. This is fucking Trevor's garage.
We get the shout out to Noel's next door neighbor Trevor.
He doesn't have a garage, but
Well, he does in this movie.
he does. It's actually the hideout of the sex terrorists.
It is.
So they're eating
Bad luck. Bad luck. They stumbled
Bad
upon
luck.
the sectarians.
Really bad luck. They're eating this awful jerky, which turns out to be made of livers of humans. That guy who keeps cutting out everyone's livers keeps turning it into jerky. And then, of course, who shows up to sort of continue the day? The sex terrorist. So we're here now in the sex terrorist fucking cheap-ass garage, which is their hideout. And the Texas Rangers are there with the she-devil, and we're going to get a fucking standoff.
We get that almost right away. The bikers are understandably confused, as is everyone who meets Texas Rangers. First thing they say is, "Where are your horses?" And my answer to that is, horses are expensive. You can't, if you're making a movie on a low budget, you can't be renting horses and having to follow all the animal ethics codes. So this is an elegant workaround, let's say.
It cost a lot to have the chinchilla, the turtle, and the dog in the movie.
Yeah, that was the
no
live
way.
chinchilla.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's no way where they were pulling out fucking horses.
Yeah. While they're there, the Lobo recognizes the she-beast of Devil Mountain, I think it is.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Maybe not Snake Mountain. I don't know. He goes to kind of make a move on her, and this is where we get the standoff. You mentioned all the guns and knives come out. We're in this standoff, and then all of a sudden, the whip once again takes away Sticky Joe's gun every time, and the sex terrorists just completely take over the marshals there. Things are not looking good right now for the she beast.
I'm gonna step in here real quick. So we see the one marshal get its gun whipped out of his hand, and the other takes an arrow through the hand.
Guy sharp with the arrow.
Yeah, wood guy, the moonshine. It's the.
Is that who it was?
Woman.
Oh,
yeah,
I thought it
moonshine
was the liver guy.
No, it's the indigenous appropriation woman who gets shot.
She's 164th. Listen.
Yeah, okay. She takes that arrow out of his hand and stabs it right through the fucking eye of Old One Eye.
No, why would she stab the guy in her own
No,
gang?
he doesn't. Sorry. The Texas Marshal rips the arrow out of his hand and stabs it through the eye of Old One Eye, one of the members of the sex cultists. One who we see very little and has very little importance.
Old One Eye doesn't last too long in this whole melee
As
here.
soon as he becomes Old Zero Eye, he's gone.
They overwhelm the marshals, and again, things are not looking good. And sure enough, we get another. Like, this is like the third rape scene in this movie. There's so many rapes. I'm uncomfortable with it.
This is really graphic. They take the arrow that the marshal uses to like kill or end Old One Eye and shove it ass repeatedly.
Well,
yes,
yeah,
that's what happens. And in the other case, the other marshal, Sticky Joe, just gets raped.
Well, the next day they rape both of them. It's a power move, much like Jezebel showing her boob and running a straight razor along it. The next day,
can't believe you brought that back up.
They make listen. I got that in the brain. That's lodged in there. The next day, they're gonna make the two marshals fight to the death. They tie their wrists together like Michael Jackson, that other guy in the Beat It video, and they're just gonna have to go at it. And it seems like they're not going to, but then all of a sudden they start killing each other very quickly. Sticky Joe's like, "Don't worry, Marshall," and they start attacking each other. I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. So it looked like they were going to help each other, and then of course Sticky Joe, being the like dirty perv he is, tries to kill his clean marshal friend.
But you know what? Luckily, R.I.P. Sticky Joe. No, not rest in peace. I'm glad you're gone, Sticky Joe. You're a sticky perv, and the other marshal.
The other marshal dominates him in their like handcuff combat, and then kills him and like overkills him several times with the hatchet that they're using. And they give him high praise. Like,
but you know what,
the sex cultists are like, way to go. You could be one of us, except you're not. It's time for us to torture you some more.
There are no winners in this battle. The sex terrorists are buttering him up. They call him a super badass. And the Hillary Duff witch, Jezebel, she says she wants to, F him.
Yeah.
But they decide instead to just send him on a Comanche walk, which I don't know if this is a real thing. If it is, I would love to live the rest of my life and never have to go on one of these walks, because they slice the skin off of his feet and they make him walk. And by the way, as they're doing this, they're just like slashing him. The music is incredible.
I actually wrote that down.
It's an incredible music choice and cue.
Some strong music and editing and sound effects.
They nailed it for this scene.
They did do some of their, like, this movie is notorious for excessive zooms, and there was a lot of them.
Well, it is now that we're...
We're going to make this movie notorious for its
there
excessive
are a lot
zooms,
of zooms.
Because there are
close-ups, tons of close-ups.
But yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Moonshine, the sort of indigenous character, cuts the butt of his feet. I wasn't quite sure if they were suggesting they were cutting his Achilles. Like, I didn't know.
No, I think it's just the skin's off.
I don't think so.
You
I
see
just
bare
think
skin.
they skinned his feet.
Oh god, it must hurt so much.
Yeah. In the end, our marshal ends up dying.
Oh, they scalp him too.
Yeah, and he gets scalped, and he gets livered by Jerky Master.
Yep, that's absolutely correct.
But guess who gets away?
Wait, but hang on. They don't just scalp him. He gets bitten by the snake.
Felix, yes. So we find out.
God bless him.
We find out at this point that Moonshine, the indigenous character, in her like scalp pouch, she's got a pouch that's made of scalps, also has a poisonous snake, and this snake. The
effects for the snake are not good.
This has to be intentional, right?
Like the whole thing is intentional.
Well, I know it's all intentional, but the snake that comes out is clearly a rubber snake that you could buy at your local toy store. Somebody is puppeteering the snake out from the top and it's moving along the ground.
Reminded me of Moonraker. Remember when the stunt double was just like whenever he'd move, the snake would move?
It is true. That's a good call. It seemed
along.
like the snake in Moonraker.
Oh god!
So we're going to compare this movie to Moonraker. I hope Stefan feels good about that, because I feel those are appropriate.
They've got to find a new hideout now. Clearly, Uncle Crank, who is Uncle Cranky, Uncle Crank. I forget what.
I think his name's just Crank.
So he is the Asian American member of the gang, and he's been injecting himself with like heroin throughout this whole movie. This is so strange.
He just has a giant syringe with brown liquid.
Yeah. He's going to inject the she-devil with it, but she gets the drop on him, and ends up escaping on a motorcycle. We get a motorcycle chase. This is why we bring it back to the Radical Road beer that we're enjoying. But from there, inexplicably, she takes off, and then we get a short scene with old Ezra, where he's once again talking to the turtle. He's explaining how mammals work.
So this is really, really funny. So I would say I like the attempt at the chase. It's good musical cues. It's really hilarious. It feels like an old comedy skit to me, where you see people like chasing each other just out of reach. It felt like that. And then we transition to Ezra's turtle time, where he spends each day with his turtle, just having good old lessons.
No, Benny, we're not the same. Not exactly. Max and I are what you call mammals. But don't you worry, we may be different, but we're all family. Actually, reptiles are kinder than people.
And he's talking to his turtle about what's the difference between reptiles and amphibians and mammals, and he's talking about hair and the way that babies are made.
This is biology 101 right here. Yeah. The bikers are after the she-devil. They can tell which way she's gone thanks to Moonshine's Comanche tracking ability.
I wrote fuck off, and I underlined
You're
it
so mad about
for
this.
an entire half page. I have a half page of my notebook that just says fuck off after the Comanche tracking. I also decided at this point that this film was probably made in a weekend.
I'm going to stop you right there, because I would imagine this was a pretty quick shoot. I don't know if you can knock it out in 2 days, but considering that none of the characters ever change costumes and all the locations are, I suspect this was a fast. And again, they're working on a low budget. This is a completely independent movie.
It is hard for us, though, and hard for me when we have watched a lot of different movies and we talk about them, to go back and look at this one, because it is very different, right? It is a different
And that's
style.
why we're doing it as a bonus episode, because this is not, we can't put this up to the same standards as the rest of our stuff.
And I want to still sort of highlight, we appreciate getting this as a suggestion, and we had fun watching it for sure.
So Jezebel thinks that this is some kind of ambush, but Lobo reminds her that he's the fucking president of this chapter, which he mentions like so many times in this movie. I'm the motherfucking president.
What an insecure piece of shit. This is Lobo again being my least favorite character in the entire movie, throwing down all of his insecurities as he's trying to lead this group of just absurd and awful people.
The whole I'm the boss thing is in a lot of movies where it's like you want to like maintain your power by reminding everyone I'm in charge, not you.
It's like our least favorite character from Point Break. The fucking
Gary
FBI.
Busey?
Yeah, no, he's my favorite character. What the fuck are you talking about? Gary Busey was amazing in that movie. Our least favorite character from Point Break is fucking Keanu's boss.
Dr. Cox? No.
Yeah, get him out of here.
They find her, even though it might be an ambush. They're about to kill her, but all of a sudden, sure enough, it is an ambush.
Who are they about to kill, sorry?
The she-devil of the
okay, so
Ennio,
they catch up with the she-devil, they find her.
They're about to kill her, but sure enough, it actually is an ambush, and old Ezra kills Uncle Cranky, just a fucking bullet shot, and he's out.
Yeah, he fucking snipes him from like 250 meters away.
Yeah, this is where no honor among thieves, I guess, because the cannibal guy, the Liver King, ends up eating his liver also. He goes and eats his fucking the gang mate's liver.
He just says he wouldn't want me to have it go to waste.
This gang they're reeling. At least for now. They're not in good shape.
Well, they
here.
actually call for retreat. The sex terrorists decide that this isn't where they want to be. Even though there's still 4 of them and the one like ponchoed woman, they decide that it's time to run away, and so they do.
They do, and while this happens, the she-devil, Ennio is her name, we find out. Her and Ezra get to know each other, and it turns out that he's blind. He's been blind this whole time. Well, the way he phrases it, though, I'm only blind in one eye. I just can't see out of the other one, which is
pretty amazing.
Funny. I like that.
Our prophetic old man, who we find out is blind, I find it a little hilarious that they didn't sort of suggest that earlier, but I also kind of like that it wasn't obvious that Ezra was blind throughout the movie so far.
Well, but is he really blind? Because he talks to the animals, and the animals guide him. They are his eyes.
And the wind told him where he needed to shoot, I think, as far as the movie tells us. So clearly he uses his senses and his connection to nature to know what's happening. So he's less than blind. He has more senses than the rest of us.
So he's not less than blind, he's more than blind. Or is he? I don't know.
I don't know. He's more than us. He's definitely more than the sex.
Well, I can't fucking communicate with animals. Are you kidding me?
Well, you need to try harder.
That's
You better get a chinchilla and turtle pretty soon.
So we see the sex terrorists. They're licking their wounds at this point. And we've got some dissension in the gang here between Jezebel and Moonshine. Really what it is they need to focus. They need to get back the money and drugs. So the girls kind of have it out here. And it turns out that the snake that Moonshine has in her possession is a symbol of her people. We see it again. It's just clearly a plastic snake. And then we get a cut to like some stock footage of a snake rolling on the ground.
With hissing sounds. It's fantastic. Before we go forward, I think we forgot to mention, and I want to add this just so people don't confuse on the plot. When our sort of she-devil or our devil mountain lady gets away, she does steal the drugs and money from the sex terrorist gang.
Right. She's got it. I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that.
We should have said that.
I'm very intoxicated.
So she gets away from that, and the rest of the sex terrorists are obviously upset. And
this is why they're reeling. It turns out that Jezebel wants Lobo to want her, Shadow Cheap Trick, but just her. Okay, which is probably not going to happen because Lobo clearly just has his way with whoever he wants.
I think they both express that he fucks everything that he wants to.
Doesn't strike me as a one-woman man. We then see Lobo, speaking of which, and the Liver King, and they find two like lady campers. I don't understand what this is.
It's funny because they're kind of dressed as like scouts.
They have matching baseball caps, and it's like vaguely uniformish.
Yeah, no, they definitely look like they're wearing scout attire. We find out later that they're from Alaska.
Yeah, but as they walk up, Lobo says something smells yummy, and they come bearing liver. They've got. The liver guy's got, hey, you guys like freshly cut liver?
Yeah, they're cooking beans, and he offers up some liver to them.
Well, and they've got margaritas.
Oh, and yes, we start to have just sort of a margarita party.
Sounds like a party, they say.
Yeah.
And almost immediately, they inject those girls with heroin.
Yeah, they're not, the girls are not happy about what's happening here. We've got Lobo and, like, Raper Liver King coming up on them.
Yeah, thankfully we cut away. We go back to the two women, Jezebel and Moonshine, and they're kind of bonding at this point. They decide to take a bath in like a creek, and we get some very romantic guitar.
Yeah, we got romantic songs, romantic music in the background. We got lots of zooms on thighs and arms.
Close up of hand holding.
Yeah, some hand holding close ups. We
Boobs.
see them take off all their
more boobs.
Lots of side and front boob.
This music though, these music cues are whoever edited this and put the music in. Well done.
And so we see them have a romantic bath together. We think that the two ladies, even though there was a bit of conflict about who really was Lobo's lady, are sort of bonding and overcoming that together.
Well, no, hang on, because before we get the full taco bar, we cut back to the party that the Lobo and the Liver King are having, and it's grim.
It's not going
grim.
well.
No, it's not good.
It's really rough.
They make the drugged up ladies strip, and then
they rape and murder them.
I was going to say, this is maybe even more creepy than it sounds. It sounds real creepy. It is probably more creepy than that.
It is awful. Like, what happens to these two sort of Alaskan women who are down for a camp is traumatic.
It's not good.
And awful.
No. You know what, though?
Yeah.
You know what is good? Is the scene of Ezra talking to that snake.
So while this is all happening, Felix, the snake, sort of slithers his way up to meet our prophetic friend, the old man, Ezra, blind animal talker.
And Ezra knows immediately, and he tells Felix, listen, you know who you can't trust? That Jezebel lady. You can't trust her. And so, this is... Oh, my God.
So after the snake sort of has its meeting with our friend Ezra the prophet, we sort of switch back to the two campers.
That party is going about as bad as it could possibly
It's really bad.
go.
They keep cutting in scenes of a smashed guitar.
That's so strange. I don't get
So
it.
they take an acoustic guitar that the ladies were sort of playing with before the two horrible people showed up, and they keep breaking it over a rock to sort of demonstrate
And
how
this is like
awful
a
this is.
slow motion close up. Like, this is metaphorical almost. Like, as though their spirits are being broken.
Yeah, and so it's traumatic. As a viewer, I was really, really sort of struck and uncomfortable by it, and I guess that was the intention.
Yeah, then we go back to the two women, and the snake tries to bite Jezebel.
Yeah.
But Moonshine stops the snake and is like, oh, that's strange. And they end up cooking some like other lizards. They have a little camp out, eat some food they've caught, some animals they've killed.
Felix had brought some animals back for them. So Felix had
is
brought.
that what happened?
Yeah. So
I
the
didn't get
snake
that at
had
all.
brought back a lizard and a mouse and a couple other animals for them.
Yeah. So they have
And
a little
they're sort of
cookout.
sitting by campfire talking together.
They fall asleep, and then the next morning, Jezebel turns on her. She ends up knifing her and then scalps her. But strangely, during the scalping, Moonshine is not fazed. She tells her, "I am the Lizard Queen," among other things, and swears that she will haunt her dreams.
We only have 3 of the sex terrorists.
Yeah, the sex terrorist
left.
gang is kind of getting whittled down.
They're
here.
getting decimated, as was prophesized by our old man in this
There you
story,
go.
right? We knew
Yeah.
kind of that this was likely to happen. We know that the way that we're living currently is not sustainable. We got to get back to nature.
My
That's-
God, you are pulling all the meaning out of this. Also waking up this next morning is Lobo and the Liver King. The women are very dead. These 2 guys seem to have a bad hangover, so they stagger off. And while they're staggering off, they bump into Jezebel. And when they find out kind of what happened to Moonshine, they get very upset. And sure enough, they try shooting Jezebel, but she speeds off on a motorcycle. They are like 5 feet away from her, and they miss her with all the bullets. They shoot like 17 times. They don't hit her. She's as far away from them as I am from you right now.
It is pretty hilarious. I was about to throw down ridiculous again. She shoots out their tires, though. It's pretty insane that she's so accurate that she can shoot out their tires, but she has no interest in killing them, and she drives off.
No, but Lobo swears revenge. Meanwhile, the Liver King is like, "Yeah, that's stupid. I'm out of here." So Lobo turns on him. We get a knife fight, and my God, this knife fight.
Lobo versus Liver. This is giving me sort of flashbacks of other fights we've seen in this podcast.
This fight scene is incredible. And I say that with like the highest level of sarcasm. It's incredible in the way that I enjoy so many bad movies. This fight scene is hilariously bad. And sure enough, it ends with Lobo killing the Liver King and then dropping this little phrase on him. He tells him,
You can keep your stink-ass liver.
Lobo is not going to eat the Liver King's liver.
Yeah, we see sort of the homeless Davy Crockett just get finished off by Lobo, our Wolf King.
That dude is always covered in blood. Clean yourself up. You know what?
You're
eating livers, but fucking wipe your face one
despicable,
time.
disgusting character in here. And there are several characters who rape and maim. So I don't know.
He's
it's
the worst.
awful. But at least we see Wolf the Wolf like murder him and take off as we sort of transition from that fight back to Enyo and Ezra.
Yeah, they're walking along and they spot a smoke signal. Now Enyo goes to investigate, and when she gets there, she finds Jezebel. She comes in peace, Jezebel does, because of boy drama, she says. She proposes an alliance, but it turns out Enyo is a Texas Ranger. She's been undercover this whole time.
Boom!
And she shoots Jezebel. We get like a bullet hole point of view, but Jezebel is not dead. She's just been shot, so she speeds off. And then for some inexplicable reason, we go to a scene where Ezra is like dry humping a tree that he says is his soulmate. I don't understand.
Okay, so I'm going to come back here for a second. This cut to our prophet and his tree is really, really interesting and telling.
He's very much at one with
He's
nature.
so romantic. The tree is his soulmate, and we learn that nature really is the message behind this movie, right? Like, we should all be way closer to our trees and animals.
I'm not sure we should be that close to nature, as close as Ezra is, because he's
should
maybe
anyone?
a little
I
too
don't
close to Ezra.
I
don't like it.
There might be a little too much sap on his body for my liking.
Oh, God, Jesus Christ. Enyo has to go, and we end up back at the bridge from the original shot in this movie. We got some nice symmetry. They're bookending this.
I really like this part. I love how we end
love
up where we
bridges.
started. I really like it.
We got a little showdown where Enyo is there squaring off against Lobo, but then all of a sudden Jezebel appears. She whips Lobo with her bullwhip. She flips him over the edge, and his neck is broken. She hangs him, and that's it for Lobo. He's dead.
Yeah, she's the power. She doesn't want Lobo to be there anymore.
Well, she claims to be the power. She tries to pull rank on Enyo and is like, I'm in charge. And then we get a second showdown with just like those two facing off here. And my God, the intense close-ups in this showdown.
The intense eyes. It's several close-ups on eyes, several close-ups on guns. For some reason, Jezebel's carrying like a German Luger.
She is, which how have we not mentioned that until now?
I don't know.
What are these weird assortment of guns these characters have?
It is interesting. I thought they would all be kind of Western revolvers, but for some reason, Jezebel
it's
has
absolutely a German Luger.
Yeah, this is straight out of World War II,
World
right?
War
Like
II.
this is weird.
The guns quickly get dispatched, and they end up having knife fight 2.0, just like slashing and trying to stab each other. The noises that the two of them are making, to me,
Do you want me to tell you what I called this fight?
please do. It'll make me seem like less of a creep.
Yeah, I called this the orgasm sound fight.
They're very sexy noises.
Yeah, it's like a female tennis match. The grunting and the sounds that were coming out of these women as they were slashing at each other was nothing less than a fake orgasm pornography film.
It sounds a lot like both of them are climaxing, and Jezebel goes to swipe Enya with a knife. Enya catches it with her hand, and the pain clearly does not faze her, neither does the blood.
And at that point, we see Ezra come. He pops in, and we see a noose fly around the neck of Jezebel.
Yep, and she ends up getting hung also. So it's our second or third hanging of the movie. She
think
gets
it's the
hung,
third hanging, yeah.
broken neck, and now we've got Ezra and Enya, and they walk off together. And she tells us that being a Texan means one thing: being born mean. We get a shot of them like walking off on the bridge. It's kind of a mirror image of the way the movie starts, and that's the end. And we get the credits, and just like
that's it.
What the fuck?
I really like that the ending mirrored the start. They played the same music that we had going in. The only difference in the shot was that we could see the two bodies hanging there.
They clearly had this worked out from the beginning. We're going to begin this bridge. We're going to end on this bridge. There's some craft and some thought into this. Like, these guys are, they're working on a limited budget, but they're not fucking around. They're making a serious movie.
Yeah.
Well, no, not a serious movie, but
they are making a movie. They are filmmakers.
They're serious about making this movie.
Yeah, they are serious about making films, and I think that's a fair way to describe what happened.
We need to rate this as we usually do. We rate it 2 times on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 10 for how bad it is and 1 to 10 for how enjoyable it is. And the goal is to find a movie that is 10 out of 10 on both things, or as we know it, the Crit 20. I struggle with this because they're trying to make this movie, like they know it's low budget. They're trying to make it akin to the 70s, like bad movies of the 70s.
Yes.
And you know what? They succeed because, in my opinion, this movie is 10 out of 10 bad. It is like, listen, it's a low budget thing. No one's going to mistake this for a Hollywood production. Some of the choices are, let's just say, aggressive, and like some of the acting performances not strong. I think they've hit this, like they've hit the nail on the head in terms of making a movie that seems like it would fit in with like the late night nonsense movies of the 70s. Mission accomplished. So I feel weird about giving it a 10, but you've made a movie that is 10 out of 10 bad. For me, the Crit 20 is in play. What do you say?
I kind of agree with you. It sort of feels like it was made sort of in homage to some of the movies that were popular at that time. But I am going to give it a 10. I'm going to go there. Yeah. I'm going to give it a 10 bad because I do want the Crit 20 to be in play. Right? Because
I'm sorry, you want what to be in play?
I want the Crit 20 to be in play because I think that's important here because I think that's part of what the goal was behind this movie. You clearly can't say the acting was good, and you clearly can't say that several of the content points of the movie were something that would be applicable to a wide audience, right?
No, and again, they reached out to us. We're not called good movies in beer.
No.
If you're reaching out to us, yeah, exactly.
And it makes sense. And so I'm going to give them a 10 out of 10 bad. And then we have one other rating what we have to do. We have to say how enjoyable it was out of 10.
And?
So I feel really put on the spot about this one.
I love that you have to go first, the record.
You feel so good about this right now because this for me was a struggle. I really had issues with some of the content, and that says more about me than the movie itself. I really think that was intentional. I really enjoyed the musical cues. I really enjoyed that it started and ended on a truss bridge. I thought that was great. I think that the Ezra character and maybe the sort of the message of back to nature fits well with some of the things that I like.
That shit up.
I know, I love that. I eat
right
that shit up, right? I love that it's a condemnation of sort of general society, or that's the way that I take it to be. So it's interesting for me. I clearly won't watch this again, as with most of the movies.
Oh no. Well, I guess
as with
I was gonna
most
say
of the movies that we've ever watched.
They're in good company. It's
this is not a
twice.
sort of condemnation of this movie. That is where most of the movies on this podcast fall. But an enjoyability rating for me, I think I got to stick it with a 6.
See, now I feel bad because my enjoyability rating is a 5. I just, how do I put this? There will be days where I am in the mood to watch a movie like this. And there will also be days when I am not in the mood. It's kind of a coin flip. I can kind of go either way. There were times I laughed out loud. Like this was an entertaining watch for me this one time. To your point, I don't know if I would necessarily want to see it again.
And that's fair. I think I laughed a lot as well. There were parts where I was laughing out loud. We almost had to pause the movie a couple times because I found things so funny / ridiculous, right?
Yeah, and for the record, anyone tuning into the second half of our first season who wanted to hear our reactions more in real time, there would have been a few times where we were both
some really good ones. And so if you like this style of movie, I think it's one that you definitely should watch. If you're not someone who's really interested in sort of, I'm going to throw air quote sleaze out there, then you might not be interested in this movie, but it is definitely worth a watch if it's something that's sort of up your alley. And we want to thank Stefan for sending in that recommendation. We appreciate that
Absolutely. A lot. And, that kind of brings us to the end of this episode, but
we got to talk about the beer.
Holy shit, you're right. I almost forgot.
Yeah, you almost walked right by this Yuzo Pale Ale.
I apologize, Radical Road Brewing Company, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. How did you feel about it?
I really enjoyed it. I don't know a lot about the Yuzo fruit, but I feel like it pairs super well with this kind of pale ale flavor.
Yeah, as you know, I'm not an IPA guy, not a pale ale guy, but I took one sip of this and I was like, wow, I was pretty into it. I was like, this is going to be fucking enjoyable beer. And sure enough, it went down real smooth. If you can't hear me getting drunker in the course of this podcast, it happened. Trust me. I would drink this again. Yuzu, Radical Road.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I enjoyed those sort of yuzu notes, the sort of fruit notes that were there with that pale ale. I love pale ales, and this fit perfectly in sort of the range of more sort of hoppy, fruit-forward, cloudy pale ales that I enjoy. So
there's high praise from Nolan here for anyone who's looking for a good IPA. If you're in the Toronto area, Ontario area. Woo! So that will bring us to the end of this bonus episode. We'll be back in about 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, with the rest of our first season here on Bad Movies and Beer. If you have not already, please like, share, subscribe, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the BMB Podcast.
If you have any suggestions, either for beer or for movies you might want us to watch, if you have any questions or comments for us, please send us an email at thebmbpodcast@gmail.com.
Or just slide into our DMs on Instagram and Twitter. Why not, right?
Yeah, we love talking with people both on our social media and in our email.
Thank you so much for listening. I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And we'll see you next time on Bad Movies and Beer.
Keep it raunchy.
Oh, goodness. Hell comes to Texas.